Hi everybody, this is a VR to Piping Pirate. He's a fairly new guy, but he wanted to do a giveaway, and I think it would be good if we could support that. From what I've seen of your channel and of you, I think you're soon going to increase your numbers and get quite well known in the community. But you asked what was our first job? Well, I'll tell you about two jobs, because my first one didn't last that long. My dad had always wanted to be a motor mechanic, and so he thought that I could fulfill that role for him. So when I left school, he got me a job as an apprentice motor mechanic with a local garage, and the owner of the garage was a bit of a villain, really. He knew a bit about botching cars up, and I'd spend most of my time in the back of the car putting fires out as he welded the floors of the car because they'd rotted through or things like that. But anyway, the garage had to close after about 3 to 6 months. He went bankrupt. And after that, I went to work in a tailor's shop in Leeds. And I stayed in tailoring for 3 or 4 years. My main claim in the tailoring shop was that I sold 31 suits to one man at the same time. I really couldn't measure for suits. That was always done by the skilled tailors who'd been trained. But I was serving in the shop and he was looking at patterns. And I went out with a pattern book by a firm called Reed and Taylor, which were superb fabrics. Really, really top class stuff. And he took a look at them and we were talking about things in general and about suits. And then he followed me in and the manager said, "Oh, I'll take care of this customer." And the customer said, "You won't, this young man's serving me." And he said, "I want a suit made from this material, and he went through 31 materials. And I sort of took his details, his name, address, and that, and the patterns that he wanted. And then I called to the manager and said, "Excuse me, could you measure this gentleman for a suit, please? He wants 31, which was quite brilliant. I felt really good about it. But anyway, you asked what I'm doing now, what we're doing now. Well, I'm retired. I retired from being a priest and a deliverance minister in the Church of England after having a massive mental breakdown, caused partly by my treatment by the church and by the authorities in the church. And after 6 months illness, they decided that the best thing to do was to retire me. And it was the best thing, because I now no longer believe in God, and I've been the happiest that I've ever been in my life. But anyway, that's another story. You asked what was the job I hated. Well, apart from the church, I went to work in a paper mill. I started off on stack, which involved taking the rolls of paper off the making machines, pushing them on a trolley to the place where they were stored, a stack, and put the paper on the stack, and when a machine man wanted the paper, I'd get the roll that he wanted and take it to his machine and help him to put it into the machine. And then I became a machine man myself. Our paper mill was a very dangerous paper mill. We had at least one accident a shift, and usually they were serious accidents. I had a head injury here, where I cut open my head and cut a vein, an artery. I had split the back of my head open because somebody took a crane up and caught it on a girder, and the crane exploded and part of the crane hit my head. I was lucky that I tried to duck at the time, so it just skimmed me. So you get some idea of what kind of a place it was. But what made me leave was one of my young men on my cutting machine. His job was to collect the waste paper, the broke paper, put it in a box and put it under a press, make a bale, and then come back and fill the box up again. Excuse me. Well, he couldn't get the box under the press because the paper was stuck up a bit. So he climbed on top of the box and jumped up and down to push it under the press. And unfortunately fell out of the box, which was about 6 foot high, and hit his head on the concrete floor and bled into the brain. The firm said that it wasn't the fall that caused his brain bleed. He had a bleed in the brain and that caused him to fall. So the lad's mother ended up with £400 compensation and a brain-damaged young man. She came down with a gun, which I managed to take off her. And I created a riot virtually by saying how bad this lad had been treated. And it was suggested that I left. So I did. In other words, I got sacked. So that was that job. So that space cleared. I did a lot of other jobs. Some of them good, some of them bad. But I think that's enough for your giveaway. I hope you grow in numbers and I hope you enjoy being a member of the YTCP. And I look forward a lot more to your videos. I'm going to end, I think, with a joke. There was this man whose wife wanted to go to a beauty parlour. So they went, he took her downtown to the beauty shop and he gave her some money from his wallet to get the beauty treatment. And he only had about £2.50 left. Anyway, he was stood outside the shop waiting for her to come out. And this lady of the street thought that he'd been stood there for quite a while and was touting for a prostitute. So she went up to him and said, "Would you like a good time?" So he said, "Well, I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of money. I've only got £2.50. And she looked at him and said, "Well, you're not going to get much for £2.50, and wandered off. Anyway, his wife came out from having her beauty treatment. And he looked at her and he said, "Oh, love, you look beautiful. You look lovely." And just as they're walking away, the prostitute came up to him, tapped him on the shoulder and said, "I told you you wouldn't get much for £2.50.